Hello, everybody. Hello, Nicola. How are you?
Hello, I am very good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you with us. I'm looking forward to today. Okay. Now, Nicola is a friend, and I've known her in previous incarnations on this earth plane, where we've actually spent some time together. And she's a lovely person, lovely soul. I'm looking forward to interviewing her today because we're going to be interviewing her all about her works and her published works. And we're going to get there in a bit. Now, Nicola is a published author, founder of the Soulful Wisdom Academy, and soon to be the host of Soul Wisdom Seekers podcast. So she's got a book out there and all sorts of wonderful things. She uses her natural intuitive and psychic abilities as a soul wisdom activator with the guidance of a dragon clan, which we're going to get to in a minute because you can see a nice dragon in the background there. So yeah, take note. She uses her natural gifts with their seeking of her intuition. She's using her intuition to bring confidently forward the senses and the magic that's about us every day. And some people will say that's a little bit shamanic, and I think we could agree on that. But when we get talking, it's going to be fun because we're going to find out a bit more about that. Now, we're going to start at Nicola's background, and she has got a nice background and she lives in a lovely part of the world, and I'll let her explain a little bit more about that. But if you could share a little bit about your background, Nicola, where you started, what got you started in this on this journey?
Well, yes, I do. I live in the New Forest, so this area is quite renowned, actually, particularly Burley, that's not too far from me, for a very esoteric sort of shops and astrology and herbs and things like that. And of course, the birth perhaps of Wicca and that side of things. Not that I go there too much, but it's sort of the heritage around here. Um, but yeah, so as a child, I was very much into astrology and herbs and, dream symbology as well. But then I found my spirituality later in the church. And, then I just got busy bringing up a family and I didn't really think too much about it because I let all that go. But then, of course, I guess as my children grew up, I sort of realized the hopes and the dreams and the things I hadn't really brought into fruition, and I lost myself. And it's like, well, who am I? And what do I want to do? And of course, when you start thinking about all those things you haven't achieved or haven't done, you can go into this downward spiral and depression can set in. And this time I didn't want to go there. And it was like going out into nature, being with the plant life, as it were, and walking in the forest. I just used to find that almost I would get stories if I connected in with plants and the trees. They would tell me stories that would help me along the way, and I guess they were opening my intuitive pathways. And also my uncle, he taught transcendental meditation and he started teaching me that. So with the walks in nature and regularly sort of meditating, it actually opened almost the floodgates to almost the all that is, I suppose, and the intuition. It just all opened up, which then, of course, with it brought the fear. So
I quite like that. So I think we all go there. I mean, obviously, from my point of view, I had my spiritual awakening around my child as well. So I think that's pretty magical. Okay. Now I know that you're good at meditation and intuition and everything else because we've spoken before. But, obviously as a child, when did you start to realize that you had any intuition or connection? Do you have an early memory or a certain timeline that you thought, my gosh, that's it. I'm aware of this now?
yes, and to be fair, I'd forgotten about it. So it wasn't until everything opened up I started having the memories back again of dreams that I had had as a child. And those dreams often would be very prophetic dreams, usually disasters and awful things that would happen. And then I'd wake up, and then the next day I'd see it in the news, um, and then that almost leaves a fear, and it feels like, I mean, I just felt I was cursed because I can remember having this vision of a house burning down, and then the next morning on my walk to school, there was the exact cottage that I'd seen in my dream, and it was burnt down to cinders. So I could smell the smoke and everything in my dream. And then when I walked to school, there's this house. And to me, it was like, what's the point of having these it's not a gift, it's like a curse, because if you can see things happening and they're disasters and you can't help people and you can't do anything about it, then that's not a very good gift to have. So I guess I kind of closed it down a little, because you don't understand it, do you, as a child?
This is true. Now, I would say, having brought on and mentored a lot of people, that that's a pretty common thing where they've had either prophecies or experiences, and without somebody to guide them, they get scared and they shut it down. I think prophecy, though, is a big part of people's intuition or psychic awareness. And it's there to save us, but we tend to think of it, oh no. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's nice. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of the audience listening will relate to that, ironically, because they're trying to awaken themselves from a certain point. Okay, that's nice. I didn't even know that bit. I mean, okay, now dragons is a big theme here. Obviously in the background, I know you painted the dragon, inspired this dragon behind us. And then a big part of your spiritual journey. I mean, when did you first become aware of dragon energies? And I think
Yeah, well, I couldn't paint them until after I started working with you. So that you opened up those channels. But before that, it was probably about 5 years ago. I just started seeing and sensing dragons around me. I'd say more in my third eye, as it were, as opposed to get them being real as such. Although some people will say they're real, and I'm not sure, but I see them. I was seeing them in my dreams, and I was being drawn to them. They were showing me places to go, and so I just started responding to that, and I started going to these places that I was being shown. Lots of them would be sacred sites, and you know, just by going to those places, it opened up more things, and things would start happening. It was almost like I was being rewarded as another layer of fear, or something was falling away from me. So yeah, just and then as I went to these places even more, I could start hearing them. So like when I went to Avebury, I began to hear the dragons, and that's when like 6 healing dragons came through with these different activations. But yeah, I think it really started with the Reiki and the shamanism that I was doing, and that's where it sort of opened up, going into shamanic realms and seeing, in the elemental kingdom, seeing the dragons there. That's really how it first started, I think.
like that. So me relating that back, I think that elementals are much more common than people think they are. Being aware of trees, spirits, being aware of you mentioned this earlier, being aware of other elemental energies. It's quite common. I feel that's a really important thing to actually understand. And yes, seeing it in your mind's eye, knowing this in your mind's eye, I think is more prophetically profound. We appreciate, yes,
Mm.
appreciate some people think they're real. But for me, yes, the idea of this, and that awakened a whole bunch of things in you, obviously, and more of your own spiritual journey. And then you started to understand the activations to the dragons, which you've just mentioned. And so these activations, tell me a little bit more about that, because I'm quite interested, and I'm sure most everybody here is interested in this context. Now, I'm seeing more and more people become aware of dragon awakened energy. And that includes here where I am on Cyprus, there's a lady doing all of this around certain ceremonies. And I was quite privileged to see that, because I immediately thought of Nicola. So yes. So yeah, tell us a little bit more, just about that awakening, the idea of how that is understood to yourself.
Yeah, so I kind of see the dragon energy, really, it's interwoven with the divine feminine and that goddess energy. And that's where like the elemental kingdom fits in. The dragons are the air, they're the fire, they're the water and the earth. They're all of those things, which comes from the goddess herself. And so when we're working with that energy, we're effectively awakening the dragon within. And through these activations, which I was shown, like the powerhouses, it's like we're awakening the Shakti energy and that divine feminine power within us when we awaken the dragon. And that's what then flows through us. But dragons are not just the divine feminine, they're also the balancing of the the masculine energy within us as well. So it's predominantly awakening and bringing more divine feminine energy through, because this world is full of too much perhaps masculine energy. So it's almost a remembrance of our feminine power within and bringing that to the forefront. So it is a journey of empowerment.
Oh, I like that. Now, that's very profound, because the world has become quite, as you said, more masculinely led, lots of yang concepts, lots of deeper, heavier, those sorts of vibrations, less of these light concepts. Now, I've spoken to a number of people about this, and when you see other episodes of this, you'll hear this a bit more. Interesting, bringing the femininity back. I like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask another question. I'm sure the audience is thinking about this. Is, do they have their own dragon identity? So perhaps if they were working with yourself, would they then identify with an aspect of a dragon that relates to their own, I suppose, energy?
Yeah, so I see dragons as colors. I mean, dragons don't tend to like give themselves names as such. That's all they say. That's very human, sort of thing, where they are the balance of the divine feminine and masculine energy. So they're not necessarily male or female. They are almost like, so the way I see them is colors, and I often see those colors relating to the kind of chakra, different chakra energies. So if we're talking about aspects of ourself, then for example, if you were working with a black dragon, I see that as the almost like that creative energy of the divine, that chaos energy, that we have of the dark goddess, and that's what's coming through. And maybe that's an aspect of ourselves perhaps to visit. And are we being creative enough in our lives? And is that balanced? Are we just creating and creating and creating, which I have definitely been stuck in for a few years, and then not actually balancing it out with the masculine energy and taking action to actually bring it into fruition. So I think it's more, that's how I see it. So, and if we were working with the red dragon, perhaps then that could be more our root powerhouse, as it were. And are we grounded enough? Are you grounded, or are you away with the fairies a lot, or are we caught up in the busyness of life and just doing, taking action, and we're not grounded. So that's kind of how I work with the dragons, but obviously different people will work with dragons in different ways.
Oh, I quite like that. Now, I would say mine, when I paint, which I do, are often either deep purple or blue, light blue. I tend to see and feel that. I do, because I actually interpret it in my instance, into paintings and anything that's elemental. So I'm sure a lot of people will notice that about things they do. They'll be thinking, I'm very drawn to that, or I'm in that space, or they do. It's, oh, that's lovely. That's a nice description. Why it's nice is because it's simple. We can understand it, which I think is important. That's a nice description. And I know Nicola is very good with words, but it's a nice description. Thank you. All right. Now, for me, it's important to understand that. And, there are things like, you must have got to a point where you wanted to help others understand this. And so I'm obviously going to ask you at what point that happened. And you thought, well, that's it. I'm going to help others to know this, knowing that I have come to love and understand.
Yeah, I don't think I actually set out, if I'm honest. I didn't set out to help others. I was just almost like the dragon in this hoarder of knowledge. When I first started going down the rabbit holes, and I was just led to all these different stories, understanding mythology, understanding the history, understanding the science, and all these sort of aspects of healing that you get led down. And I was just hoarding it and hoarding it and hoarding it. And then at some point, it just kind of switched that other people are interested in knowing this stuff too. And then realizing that I can obviously share, it's time to share this information, and that it's safe to share it as well. That people, once I'd got over my own fears and judgments of others, that actually it's safe to share this stuff, this woo-woo stuff, or whatever people call. And I'm not actually weird and schizophrenic, as some people have said to me, because I speak to dragons. Once you've got over that, it's like, well, people are interested in this stuff and they want to hear more. And of course, my past, I was a teacher and a lecturer for colleges, so it kind of makes sense to use your skills that you had, and
Oh,
then,
yeah.
create what people want, I guess, create the course that people will create what they want, but then give them what they need. Perhaps it's that.
Yes, I recall having a conversation about that. That's clear what they want, but give what they need. Now, I rather like that. Now, we all have that fear. When we have our awareness awakened, when we have various elements of ourselves um, come forwards, I think everybody has that fear. Now, what's nice about that is that you're sharing that it was hard to step forward and people judge you, which I think a lot of people feel. I think even people come onto programs or come forward and want to learn something, they've first got to overcome that. So by sharing that principle, I think it's very powerful. Now, I agree. I think that some people are quite narrow-minded, so we will touch on that because they will put this in some sort of hocus pocus or strange place. But when you are working with your bodies and you're bringing your energies forwards and into your awareness and your consciousness is becoming awakened in these states, this is when we feel at our best. This is why the interview is so powerful from my point of view. I feel this is a necessary thing. So when I listen to you, I think, this is a good thing, because we're all in this space where we need to evolve. And I feel that the planet is coming into these spaces anyway. People are evolving and moving into this space, if I'm really honest. So I'm going to second that. I rather like it. And yes, you are very articulate.
Thank you. That's funny because I was saying earlier, I don't know how to articulate this because my mind goes off in all these tangents sometimes.
You'll go off on tangents. You have a soothing voice, and I know that's part of your work. I know people appreciate that. Now, there's an awful lot of other places we can go because I know you were a speaker on a summit, and you have you impart a part of a book, and there's a whole bunch of other cool things, and people can dig into that because they can find you on Soulful Wisdom Academy. But we're going to continue just a few more questions because one of them that I wanted to ask is that you talked a lot about your the internal compass that we all have and synchronicities and watching out for these sorts of things and the concept of synchronicity. And now I'm a big believer in that, but I'd love you to explain just a little bit more to people because I feel that's in people's everyday lives, actually.
Yeah, to me, following your internal compass is following your soul's path, I guess. And it's to find that soul path, it's that balance. It is the balance of the yin and yang. It is the balancing of the feminine and the masculine within us. I see it as, following your heart's desires, and getting out of our heads, trusting our intuition. A lot of the time we don't trust that intuition. And just actually taking action on a synchronicity or a sign that we see, which a lot of us don't do. We get a sign, we get the synchronicity, we get the meaning of it, or maybe perhaps we don't understand the meaning, we're trying to understand that. But when we have got the understanding of it, we never seem to take action. We just sort of take the message and then leave it, and go on about our business, as it were. So to me, it's if you can take the action, and then but it's the taking the action. Often that's when the fear comes up. So it's like you've got to clear the fear, and that's where to look. Clear the fear, and then you can take the action and get more soul aligned. And I don't know if I explained that.
You do that wonderfully well. So now to punctuate that, because that's my job as the host and obviously to conduct the interview, is that we all have synchronicities. I know, for example, my son always sees as cheesy as it is, little white feathers when he's needing guidance back, and numerology numbers, sevens in his instance, for example. In my instance, I'll see specific things, animals, or I'll see certain, I saw little diamond things. Gosh, I don't even know where these little pieces came from. But it's all connected to the synchronicity of something we're doing in business. And it's like they are there, but we've got to try and decode them. And as you said, we get fearful. We think, what is that? What is that? So yeah, I feel that was explained extremely well. And I know that that's part of your work is to unblock and find these patterns and to help people find this awareness. And this is part of your work, which I know you've got a course coming up, which we'll touch on at the end. Okay, lovely. Now, You're right. I mean, for me, what are some of the steps that an individual can take to raise their awareness and something that they could do that's very practical? Are there any sort of tips or ideas that come to mind when you're thinking of somebody starting on those baby steps at the
Uh,
beginning?
yeah, I think it is. It's that first step is having awareness of the signs and synchronicities, the taking the action of them. I think it does automatically show that interconnectedness and that there's something bigger outside of ourselves, and it's not just us, and that we are connected. Um, and it's the it's I think it's the fear. That's probably where I'd go with it, is clearing the fear. Understanding the unconscious fears that are within us. That's what needs clearing. And those are probably being layered on top. It's past beliefs that have been placed upon us by society, by families, and why we should or shouldn't do something. And that's sort of that's the best place to go to live more authentically, is to remove those fears, because that's where the block is, those fears that are there.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, I definitely concur with the work that I do. That's the place we start. Now, okay. Now, coming back to you, the ethos behind the Soulful Wisdom Academy and what you're putting in place this coming year. You've got, I know, a course ahead of this year, and some people actually with you, working with you on their awakenings. Um, the question is, how's that the ethos? How's that developed? And how is that for you then going to serve obviously humanity? Because I know your ethos is quite strong behind them.
Yeah, so I think that I see the Soulful Wisdom Academy as more of a sanctuary, a safe place for women to explore their personal growth, personal growth of being empowered, connecting in with their divine feminine, and bringing their feminine power to the forefront. And the reason it's a safe space for this is because a lot of us as women, we often get all the shame and the guilt, and that we talked about the judgment of others that comes to us when we start stepping into our power. And often, unfortunately, the way it's been, it's women often are pitted against women. And it's nice to have, this is a space where that is safe to explore this, where that's not tolerated. It's where we all come together and support one another and help each other in our growth, because we can't just do it alone either. We need each other's to help along the way.
Beautiful. I agree with that. Now, that ethos is lovely because uniting womanhood. I think the women are naturally aligned with each other when they're working towards goals. And of course, this is, as you said, a safe space. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And they feel that way about your work. You've got some beautiful testimonials. People have had and said some lovely things. But from that point of view, when you brought somebody forwards, did you have a more rewarding moment when you thought of somebody in particular where they've come into a nicer space or a particular timeline, something like that?
I just love seeing the women that have helped, when they just suddenly start trusting, when they're trusting what they're seeing and the signs and the synchronicities, they're also trusting themselves. It's the two are together. And when they start opening up to, living more authentically, more aligned and following their passions, and they just go. That's just lovely. They're just, yeah, seeing a woman empowered and in their fullness is just beautiful, isn't it?
Well, that's what I've seen in you, because hence we've come back onto this interview. You go into space, so I must say, and it shows, okay, and it's a lovely thing. I'm saying this from an inspired point of view, as Nicola and I have worked in the past together, and the energies and the things we've brought together, and the inspiration, beautiful, beautiful feeling. Can't put feeling in if you could put feeling in a bottle, it'd be marvelous, wouldn't it? But okay, we're moving along because we're literally coming to the end of this lovely interview. But obviously you've had spiritual teachers and you've had people who inspire you. You've had books and perhaps things that you've noted as more key to your development. perhaps you could share those with other people, because there are perhaps things they're mentors, maybe.
Um, yeah, I do. I read a lot. I read so many different books. They've definitely helped me along the way, but I'm not necessarily someone who picks someone out in particular. It's almost like it's part of the rabbit hole. I'll be led here and then I'll be led there. I don't have a favorite band or music that I like, and I don't necessarily have a favorite guru as such. I feel like everyone has something to offer, and opens up your world to a new perspective. I'm more about sort of following, or remembering all of those mentors and women, like yourself, that have helped me along the way, and showing gratitude to that, because without them you wouldn't take that next step. So like we were talking about, you've definitely helped me overcome my fear. At the time, I had so much fear about entities and what I was connected to, and when I was opening up to this, I didn't want to do it, did I? I didn't want to channel, and I didn't want to explore the mediumship. I was terrified. But you helped me understand it. So I think it's honoring and remembering and having gratitude for those that have helped you along the way, as well as we shouldn't forget that when we get to a point, sort of thing, because it's the experiences of all of that that have helped us.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. I spend time in gratitude myself for all of those who've helped me. And I was just talking about it the other day when we reconnected, which is just, I love that. I just love that. Now that's tremendous. But yes, it's true. All of those wonderful pieces that we garner together, all those elements of those people who've helped us, those mentors and those books, those extracts. I've gone back to a few myself. They make it the whole, don't they? Yeah, this is lovely. Now, I always find you very restful, Nicola. Your voice is very restful. And I'm thinking that everybody else is thinking that's a restful voice as they're listening to this. Now, one last question. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience? Is there anything else that is poignant that you would like to share? Now, I know you've got a couple of things coming up if you wanted to talk about those, but I do know you also might want to share any other thoughts or pieces of advice.
Yes, I mean, I do have a course that's underway at the moment, but I think there's sort of 4 points of the year that you can join. It's very cyclical and seasonal, and it's working with the dragon and evoking the dragon within, awakening to the divine feminine. And it also works with the cycles and seasons of nature. So we work with the feminine archetype within, we work with the trees, wisdom and animal wisdom, so very shamanic as well. So that's the shamanic dragon priestess program, and it just works with the nature cycles in real time. It helps us to just slow down and simply be. So that's something that you can find out about on my website. But what I did want to share is something that I've been doing with the dragon is channeling messages from them. They always ask me to share their words of inspiration, and I started doing it for the portals. So today is like 4th of April, so it's 4/4. So I just channeled a short message this morning. So I thought maybe I could perhaps share that and read that out. They do talk in riddles, I find, with dragons. So it's always make of it what you will, as it were, and we'll all hear it in the right way that's just right for us. And it meets us at the place that we're at, I guess. So yeah, so I'll read it out as it says, because it's not how I speak. If that makes sense. When it's channeled, it's completely different. So I'll read it exactly as it's meant to be. So this is the dragon message for the 4/4 portal today. So balance is understated. We look for balance. We want balance, and yet to be balanced is to be soul aligned. Therefore, what is balance for one is not balance for another. So do not be swayed by what balance is for you. I don't think I read that right. What is? No, hang on.
That's good.
Again,
Yes, say it one more time. Yeah, yes, of course, of course, of course.
did it make sense?
Yes, it did actually. Why I
Oh,
want.
okay. I think it was therefore what is balance for one is not balance for another. I didn't read it out quite right. So do not be swayed by what balance is for you. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was very good.
No, it's rather nice. I rather like that. Say it one more time, just so the audience. I actually got that. To me, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Balance is understated. We look for balance, we want balance, and yet to be balanced is to be soul aligned. Therefore, what is balance for one is not balance for another. So do not be swayed by what balance is for you.
That's
That's
right.
better.
If you think about that balance concept, is I was talking to somebody earlier just to make that make sense, is that she has a lot of yang in her and she wants to go back to what we call the feminine energy thing. And I'm working with her with that. And she has to do a lot of things. And we're talking about this balance. And she was saying, well, her friends are completely different, opposite balance. And, and that we were finding this alignment. And we were only talking about it literally less than an hour ago when I was on with this other lady, and it was just amazing. Balance is harmony and key, and balance is important to everything, whether we're balancing within ourselves or outside of ourselves. Actually, I think that's a really beautiful message. So we're going to thank the dragons, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Nick, this has been a wonderful interview. It's nice, it's natural, as it always has been with you. There's some beautiful messages in there. I hope these people take that away. It's been a pleasure having an audience with you, really an audience with ourselves and talking about these lovely elements of this. With this, I'm going to close out for everybody else. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for coming and being a part of Simply Inspired, and obviously part of Nicola Brettell Smith's Soulful Wisdom Academy today. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye and see you all again.
Oh, thank you so much.